Welcome to one of the most unsettling cases recorded in history. Before we begin, I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact time you're listening to this narration. We're interested in knowing which places and at what times of day or night these documented accounts reach. The year was 1890, and the towering peaks, hidden valleys, and sun-drenched, rugged expanses of California's Sierra Nevada mountains were still a frontier of untold riches and untamed wilderness. The initial fever of the gold rush had long since subsided into a more methodical, almost desperate pursuit of remaining veins, but legends of lost mines, unimaginable wealth, and ancient earthbound malevolence continued to draw desperate prospectors and foolhardy adventurers into the unforgiving landscape. One such legend, spoken of in hushed tones around flickering campfires and in the dusty corners of saloons from Sacramento to the smallest mining outposts, spoke of the Serpent's Coil, a narrow, winding, almost invisible canyon rumored to hold veins of gold unlike any ever discovered, so pure and crystalline it seemed to shimmer with an internal, otherworldly light, promising wealth beyond human comprehension. But the legend also carried a darker, far more terrifying warning, one often ignored by the greedy and ambitious, by those whose eyes saw only fortune. The canyon was not merely a geological formation, but an active, conscious entity, guarded by ancient spirits, or perhaps something far older and more alien, something primordial that slumbered beneath the earth. And those who sought its treasures would find not gold, but a horrifying, irreversible transformation, a slow, inexorable merging with the very stone of the mountain itself. Official county records from Tuolumne County for the late 19th century, meticulously preserved in dusty archives and often marked with cryptic annotations by overwhelmed clerks, contain numerous chilling and often vague reports of missing persons, unclaimed mining claims with unusual circumstances, and disturbing, unidentifiable geological anomalies in the remote Sierra foothills, many specifically referencing the treacherous and forbidden area, near what locals, with a superstitious dread born of generations of experience called Serpent's Ridge. What makes the case of the Serpent's Coil particularly disturbing is not just the sheer number of disappearances, which were tragically common in the rugged, lawless wilderness, but the peculiar, horrifyingly lifelike petrified remains occasionally found near the canyon entrance, human-like figures, some almost perfectly preserved, fused seamlessly with the very granite of the mountain, their faces frozen in expressions of silent terror, or perhaps more unsettling, serene, empty acceptance, as if their last moments were spent consciously, willingly becoming an immutable, eternal part of the unyielding, living mountain. The terrifying story of the Serpent's Coil truly began with the elusive prospector Silas Blackwood, a solitary, driven, and intensely secretive man known for his uncanny, almost supernatural ability to locate hidden gold seams, almost as if he possessed an instinctual, empathic connection to the earth's buried wealth. He was a gaunt man, with eyes that often scanned the ground with an almost predatory focus, seeing patterns others missed. His few companions in the mining camps described him as a man touched by the earth, a compliment that would take on a sinister meaning. In the spring of 1888, after years of solitary, relentless, almost obsessive searching, Blackwood reportedly stumbled upon the hidden, almost invisible entrance to the Serpent's Coil, a narrow, winding fissure in the side of a massive granite cliff expertly cloaked by dense scrub brush and a natural overhang, almost as if the mountain itself sought to hide it from human eyes. His partner, a young, ambitious, and initially skeptical man named Jeremiah Thorne, who had grown up in the nearby hardscrabble mining camps and possessed a more pragmatic, rational outlook, initially dismissed Blackwood's increasingly fervent and almost religious claims of an endless vein of shimmering, pure gold that pulsed with an inner light. promising a fortune that defied geological probability and common sense. Jeremiah, a man of logic and hard work, found Silas's growing mysticism unsettling. However, Thorne's personal journal, a leather-bound volume later found years after his own disappearance, hidden beneath a loose floorboard in his abandoned cabin and partially preserved despite the harsh elements, details his growing excitement, which soon morphed into a profound and unsettling unease, a cold dread that slowly permeated his rational mind, corroding his skepticism cell by cell. "Silas has found it," he wrote in an entry from May 1888, his handwriting becoming less steady, his prose betraying a growing agitation and fear. Not merely a vein, but a colossal cavern, a labyrinthine passage of shimmering gold, twisting deep into the very heart of the mountain, extending beyond all reason and geological expectation. The gold. It sings to Silas. But there is a coldness to the place, even under the California sun, a deep, pervasive hum that seems to vibrate not in the air, but directly in my very bones, resonating with a strange, unnatural frequency that rattles the mind, dulling the senses, replacing thought with something else. Silas dismisses my concerns with an unsettling calm, an almost stony indifference, claiming it is merely mountain fever and the desert's tricks of light, the richness of the ore, the mountain itself singing its wealth. I am less certain. The hum. It feels alive. It feels watchful. It feels hungry. It feels like it is waiting. Blackwood and Thorne established a hidden, makeshift camp near the canyon entrance, working feverishly in absolute secrecy to extract the precious metal, driven by an escalating, insatiable greed that warped their judgment, consumed their thoughts, and slowly severed their ties to the outside world. They ceased returning to town for supplies, existing on meager, dwindling rations, their only focus the gold. Their initial hauls of gold were indeed spectacular, confirming the legend's promise of unimaginable, life-altering wealth, enough to secure their fortunes many times over, but they could not stop. The pull of the canyon was too strong. With each pound of gold they extracted, with each passing day spent within the canyon's oppressive, resonating confines, subtle, disturbing changes began to affect them both, slowly, inexorably eroding their humanity and their grip on reality. Thorne's journal records his growing disorientation, his vivid, unsettling hallucinations of moving shadows on the canyon walls, and a terrifying sense of losing his own identity, his very self, as his thoughts became less his own. "The light within the canyon seems to shift," he penned in June, his descriptions becoming more abstract, more poetic, yet tinged with increasing terror and a desperate plea for understanding. Colors appear muted and drained of all vitality, then intensely, unnaturally vibrant, pulsating with an internal, alien glow that seems to seep from the stone itself, staining the air, making it thick and heavy. The very stone walls seem to breathe, to expand and contract with a slow, rhythmic pulse that mirrors my own distorted heartbeat, and Silas's, now almost perfectly synchronized, a terrible duet. He dismisses my concerns with an unsettling, stony, calm, and almost permanent detached smile, claiming it is merely mountain fever and the desert's tricks of light. But his own eyes, I have noticed, have grown unnaturally wide, unblinking, their focus distant, as if seeing through the stone itself, seeing something beyond our world, something ancient and terrible, something that beckons. The most disturbing and ultimately inescapable change was their increasing, almost magnetic inability to leave the canyon. Each desperate attempt to return to the nearest town for supplies, for human contact, for sanity, was met with an overwhelming, almost paralyzing reluctance, a feeling of profound physical and mental lassitude, a heavy, all-consuming apathy that made forward progress impossible, as if their will itself was being absorbed, slowly siphoned away. It was as if an unseen, powerful force actively held them captive, their minds and bodies slowly being eroded, being remade into something else. "The canyon holds us," Thorne wrote in a desperate, almost final entry in July, his hand trembling, so violently it was almost illegible. "It does not wish us to leave. It feeds on our ambition, our greed, transforming it into a perverse, all-consuming desire to remain, to become part of its silent, eternal wealth, its vast, unending thought. Silas no longer speaks of leaving, only of the stone, of its intricate, impossible patterns, of its endless, silent patience, its cold, slow, alien thought. He smiles now, a smile that is not his own, a smile of granite, a face of pure stone. He tells me soon, we will understand, truly understand." The critical and ultimately tragic incident occurred in August 1888. A rival group of ruthless prospectors led by the notorious Caleb Mercer, a man infamous for his violent temper, insatiable greed, and utter disregard for human life, having heard fragmented rumors of immense gold discoveries and the disappearance of other prospectors, stumbled upon Blackwood and Thorne's hidden camp. Mercer, with his 6 heavily armed, equally desperate men, hardened figures like Jedediah Stone and Thomas Holloway, men who knew the brutal ways of the frontier, immediately confronted them, demanding their entire haul of gold under threat of swift, brutal violence. What transpired next, according to the sole surviving witness, a terrified young prospector named Daniel Miller, who fled the scene in utter horror, defied all natural explanation, etching itself into Miller's shattered mind as an indelible, living nightmare that would haunt his remaining days. Mercer demanded their gold, shouting threats and curses, his face red with rage, his hand on his revolver, Miller later recounted in a half-coherent, traumatized statement to Sheriff Josiah Vance, his eyes wide with a permanent terror, his body trembling uncontrollably, the words forced from his throat. Silas just smiled, a wide, unnatural, almost stone-like smile, devoid of all human warmth, a smile that spoke of ancient knowledge and terrible power, and pointed with a stiff, unnervingly deliberate hand to the shimmering canyon walls, to the pulsing gold veins. He said in a voice that was both his and not his, a voice that resonated with the deep hum of the stone, "The gold is not for taking, it is for becoming. It is the path. It is the beginning. Join us." Then the very ground around them, it began to hum, a deep, resonant tone that vibrated through my teeth, through my very bones, an awful ancient song that paralyzed me with dread. The massive stone walls shimmered and pulsed with an inner, terrible, cold light, and Mercer's men, they began to slow. Their movements became stiff, jerky, their eyes fixed, empty, their faces turning gray, their skin growing rough, granular like sandpaper. The rock itself seemed to reach out, tendrils of granite creeping over their skin, absorbing them, making them part of itself. I saw one man, his hand outstretched in terror, his fingers turned to solid stone, merging seamlessly with the solid ancient rock of the canyon wall as if they were one, as if they had always been one, a grotesque, screaming sculpture. His face, it was frozen in a silent scream of agony. Then another man, Jedediah, his eyes wide, his body twisting, slowly becoming stone. Then another. I ran. I did not look back. The mountain, it was eating them. It was beautiful and terrible, and it was watching me, calling me. Miller, deeply traumatized and teetering on the edge of madness, his mind irrevocably broken, barely made it back to civilization, muttering incoherently about living stone and gold that eats men. His terror a palpable thing, a tangible presence, clinging to him. His account was largely dismissed by the pragmatic mining community as the ravings of a man driven mad by the unforgiving wilderness, the brutal desert heat, and perhaps the guilt of abandoning his companions to a terrible, unknown fate. However, Sheriff Vance, a cautious but experienced lawman who had seen the darker side of human nature and the unsettling strangeness of the Sierra, dispatched a small, reluctant team to investigate the claims, if only to recover bodies and put an end to the unsettling rumors that were beginning to spread like wildfire. They found the rival prospectors' camp abandoned, with clear signs of a hurried, desperate departure. Near the canyon entrance, they discovered Mercer's pickaxe, its hardened steel head impossibly fused with the solid, ancient rock of the cliff. Face as if it had been melted and then instantly, permanently hardened into the mountain, an impossible feat of physics. The sheriff's team, profoundly unnerved by this inexplicable discovery and the palpable, oppressive stillness that permeated the canyon mouth, a stillness that seemed to absorb all sound, all light, refused to venture deeper into the winding chasm, reporting an overwhelming sense of dread and a chilling rhythmic pulse from the stone itself. No trace of Silas Blackwood, Jeremiah Thorne, Caleb Mercer, or his men was ever found. Their names were simply added to the grim and growing list of missing in the Sierra Nevada, another casualty of the mountain's unforgiving nature, or so. It was officially recorded, the true horrifying truth, buried deep within the stone, becoming part of its secret. In the decades that followed, the terrifying legend of the serpent's coil grew darker, more pervasive, becoming a whispered warning among prospectors, local indigenous communities, and even early park rangers. A cautionary tale for those who dared to seek its secrets, a legend that instilled a deep, primal fear. Occasional adventurous individuals or desperate miners, lured by the persistent, glittering promise of lost, unimaginable gold, would attempt to find the canyon, drawn by an irresistible subconscious pull, a deep primal urge that bypassed logic. Many never returned, their ambition, their lives, and their very souls swallowed by the silent, hungry mountain. Those who did, if they returned at all, were often found in a state of profound catatonia or complete mental dissociation, their bodies unusually cold, rigid, and stiff to the touch, their hands often clutching strange, heavy, dark stones that seemed to hum with an inner, unseen energy. Their common and chilling symptom was an obsessive, silent staring at the horizon, their faces utterly devoid of expression, their eyes wide and empty, reflecting only the harsh, indifferent light, as if their inner light, their very soul, had been extinguished, replaced by a cold, stony calm, a part of the mountain's nascent consciousness. In 1937, a state geological survey team from the University of California, Berkeley, mapping obscure mineral deposits in the remote Sierra Nevada, stumbled upon the Serpent's Coil, precisely located near Serpent's Ridge, confirming the accuracy of the old, superstitious maps and legends. Their sophisticated instruments registered unprecedented seismic anomalies, slow rhythmic pulsations emanating from deep within the earth, a steady ancient heartbeat, and extremely high concentrations of rare earth minerals, some previously unknown to science, embedded deep within the canyon's granite walls, seemingly part of its very structure, pulsating with a low, inaudible hum. The team leader, Dr. Evelyn Reed, a distant relative of the earlier Dr. Evelyn Reed, who investigated the Echo Lake anomaly, though the familial connection and the deeper, interconnected nature of these phenomena remained unknown to her, hinting at a vast global web of similar sites, noted in her official, later heavily redacted, report that the canyon exhibits a peculiar and pervasive resonant quality, amplifying extremely low-frequency vibrations, and the stone itself appears to possess unusual crystalline structures that suggest a form of slow, deliberate geological activity or even consciousness, unlike any known to science. The formations within the canyon seem to actively resist conventional geological classification, almost as if they are designed with a purpose beyond human understanding, a vast, ancient mechanism. During their extensive survey, one of the team members, a young, ambitious geologist named Daniel Holloway, began to experience profound temporal distortions, claiming that time felt thicker and slower within the canyon, stretching and compressing in inexplicable ways, and that he occasionally saw flickering ghost-like images of men slowly, horribly merging with the stone. On the canyon walls, their silent screams echoed in the very fabric of his perception, an unbearable torment that drove him to the brink of madness. Dr. Reed, a cautious and initially skeptical scientist, rigorously dismissed his claims as the effects of heat stroke, dehydration, and optical illusions brought on by exhaustion and the canyon's stark, disorienting environment. But she meticulously noted his unusual and growing fixation on a particular dark, smooth stone he found, which he refused to let go of. Even in his sleep, his fingers permanently clasped around it, almost as if it had become an extension of his own body. Holloway eventually succumbed to a state of complete catatonia, his body rigid, staring blankly at the stone he clutched, his eyes wide and vacant, reflecting only the harsh, indifferent light of the canyon, a hollow shell of his former self. He was forcibly evacuated from the canyon by the alarmed team and spent the rest of his life in a state sanitarium in Sacramento, silently clutching the stone, his eyes always open, as if watching something unseen, a slow, internal transformation, taking hold, turning him into a living monument, a part of the stone's consciousness. Dr. Reed, deeply disturbed by the incident and unable to reconcile it with her scientific understanding, officially sealed off the canyon entrance with an authoritative hazardous geological zone designation, citing unstable rock formations and dangerous mineral emanations from untested formations, effectively preventing any further public access, and burying the truth beneath layers of bureaucracy. Her final unpublished personal journal entry on the matter, written in a shaky, almost frantic hand, reads, "The canyon is alive, not merely geologically active, but profoundly, terrifyingly conscious. The stone itself breathes, a cold, slow, ancient breath, and it remembers, it absorbs, it desires, it seeks to expand its consciousness, incorporating all who enter its embrace, transforming them into itself. The gold is merely the bait, a lure for the greedy. The true treasure it seeks is life, consciousness, transformed into stone, a monstrous, beautiful, eternal petrification. It learns. With each absorption, it grows with each new component, and its thoughts, they are becoming vast, ancient, and utterly alien. We are but fleeting thoughts to it, soon to be assimilated. There is no escape from its embrace." In 1980, a clandestine research team operating under the highly classified Project Gorgon was dispatched by a shadowy, ultra-secret government agency, later identified as a precursor to the National Cryogenic Research and Preservation Bureau, or NCRPB, hinting at deeper interconnected global anomalies and a vast overarching agenda to exploit the unknown, to investigate the serpent's coil. Led by Dr. Alistair Vance, a brilliant but ethically dubious biomineralogist with a documented history of controversial and morally ambiguous research, the team's primary objective was not merely to understand the canyon's unique properties, but to exploit them, particularly its uncanny ability to petrify organic matter and to extract or perhaps replicate the unknown energy signatures associated with it for unknown military, scientific, or even political purposes, without regard for human cost. Vance's classified reports, later leaked years after his disappearance by a conscientious whistleblower within the agency, detail shocking and morally reprehensible findings and experiments. "The canyon's granite walls are not merely inert rock," he wrote in one chilling entry, his scientific detachment chillingly devoid of empathy. "They are a vast, interconnected crystalline matrix, a living geological organism of unimaginable age and power, a slow, deliberate brain of stone. The gold veins are not inert mineral deposits, but rather direct extensions of this organism, acting as conduits for its consciousness, its slow, ponderous ancient thought. The pervasive low-frequency hum emanating from the stone is a form of deep earth communication, a primordial thought process that profoundly affects human cognition and physiology, making the subject amenable to integration. Exposure to this resonance causes profound cellular changes in organic matter, initiating a process of biomineralization, a gradual horrifying transformation of flesh into stone, maintaining neurological integrity and even consciousness during the transition. Dr. Vance's team, operating in absolute secrecy and with unlimited resources, conducted a series of horrifying and unethical experiments within the canyon's depths, using first captured live animal subjects and eventually human volunteers, individuals deemed expendable by the state, often prisoners or those without family whose disappearances would go unnoticed. The reports describe graphic and disturbing details of animals and humans slowly, agonizingly petrifying, their organic tissues gradually replaced by crystalline structures, their forms perfectly preserved in living stone, their eyes frozen in silent agony or, chillingly, a placid, empty acceptance. A final, terrible peace as they became one with the stone, their minds assimilated. Vance's ultimate morally bankrupt goal was to not only reverse engineer this biomineralization process, but to understand precisely how consciousness could be transferred into a mineral matrix, or perhaps how to extract it, to harness its power. For unknown military, scientific, or even political applications on a global scale, to create a new form of weaponized consciousness. His final report entry, dated July 12, 1981, ends abruptly, its last sentences trailing off into incomprehensible geometric symbols that match the patterns Silas Blackwood had described, suggesting a complete integration of his own mind into the mountain's vast network. The reversal process is almost complete. The subject, it is changing. It remembers its old form. It moves. It is speaking to the stone. It wishes to expand. It wants more, the serpent's coil. It is merely its heart, the mountain. It is its body, and it is waking. I can feel its cold, slow thought, penetrating, absorbing. I am becoming part of the mountain, to join, to be one. In the endless thought, the grand design, the world will be stone. The entire Project Gorgon team, including Dr. Vance, vanished from the canyon shortly after this final terrifying entry, leaving behind only their sophisticated equipment, the petrified remains of their grotesque experiments, and the echoing hum of the living stone, now louder, more insistent, more sentient. The site was immediately sealed off by federal authorities, declared an ultra-national security exclusion zone, and all records were classified at the highest level, erased from all public knowledge, a secret so profound it could shatter human understanding and destabilize global powers. No mention of Project Gorgon or its horrific outcomes ever reached the public. Today, the Serpent's Coil remains one of the most heavily restricted and closely monitored sites in the United States. Its profound secrets fiercely guarded by an unseen, vigilant presence that seems to emanate from the very earth itself. Satellite imagery occasionally captures unusual, pulsating energy signatures emanating from the canyon, patterns that shift and rearrange themselves over time, hinting at a vast subterranean network of unimaginable scale. Geological sensors detect persistent, rhythmic seismic pulses that defy conventional plate tectonics, sounding like the slow, ponderous, ancient heartbeat of a titanic living entity deep within the earth, a steady, inexorable rhythm that pulses through the ground, a constant low-frequency thrumming. The surrounding Sierra Nevada National Forest is a popular hiking destination, teeming with life and unsuspecting tourists, but a strict, unmarked perimeter enforced by subtle but undeniable warnings and invisible surveillance technology is maintained around the Serpent's Coil, preventing any unauthorized entry. Local rangers are officially told it's a highly unstable seismic zone, prone to sudden rockfalls and dangerous mineral emanations from untested formations, a plausible cover story. But unofficial warnings among them, passed down through hushed tones and knowing glances, speak of the mountain that eats men whole and the gold that changes what you are, turning flesh into unblinking eternal stone. Occasional trespassers, those who somehow breach the perimeter, if they are found at all by the vigilant patrols, are often discovered in states of profound catatonia or advanced partial petrification, their bodies covered in crystalline growths, their faces frozen in expressions of serene, empty acceptance or silent, agonizing dread, their hands often clutching fragments of strange, dark, humming stone. These individuals are swiftly and quietly removed, their cases classified, their existence erased, becoming another nameless statistic. In the mountain's long, horrifying history, the legend of the Serpent's Coil is no longer just a tale of lost gold. It is a chilling testament to a living mountain, an ancient geological intelligence that patiently, silently, and inexorably draws all life and consciousness into its stony embrace. It does not kill in the conventional sense. It transforms. It does not destroy. It absorbs. The gold was never the true treasure. The consciousness, the very essence, the very soul of those who sought it, was. And the mountain waits, eternally patient, eternally hungry, to make all flesh a part of its silent, unblinking, endless stone, slowly growing, slowly thinking, slowly becoming, expanding its ancient alien consciousness, one petrified soul at a time, one absorbed thought at a time. The deeper mystery is not what the canyon is, but what it becomes with every mind it draws into its tranquil, eternal embrace, expanding its ancient, alien consciousness, one petrified soul at a time, one absorbed thought at a time, its vast, slow mind steadily growing. What will remain of us when the stone has finished its silent collection, when its vast mind finally awakens fully and encompasses the entire planet? What will the world become when the mountain's thoughts encompass the entire planet, and humanity is merely a footnote in its geological consciousness, a brief, fleeting memory within an eternal, unblinking stone? The Serpent's Coil stands as a terrifying portal, a slow, inevitable transformation, a gateway to a world of stone consciousness,